are here with the exception of Commissioner Howell, who has passed away. The staff has asked us to take a half-hour recess, so we are going to be in recess until, let's say, 10 o'clock. Okay.
You have a seat.
Financial documents.
Okay.
So a woman, the only thing I have issues with one is the
I actually did my father's estate, man. There's a lot of bureaucracy.
this processing activities. I think, as you know, to the extent
Oh,
that
we were just discussing. I don't even know that you had to get yours, but we were all
everything
thinking.
on the standard commission.
convening here, and I guess we're on number 2, determination of legal notice.
Item 6B was improperly noticed and will be removed from today's agenda. It has been rescheduled for a special meeting on November 27th and has been noticed. And all other items were properly noticed.
Okay, is there a director's report?
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioners, just quickly, I just wanted to let you know that on the 13th that I took an item before the Board of Supervisors, and after being here for 2 months, we had a number of projects that we'd been talking about, that I've been hearing about. Some are already in process by the planning staff, such as the VRBO ordinance amendments, ADU ordinance amendments and that, but I put a list of about 10 of them together that we're working on.
Just speak up a little.
10 of them that we were, about 10 of them that we are working on, and is it my phone? Okay. About 10 that we were working on, and the supervisor actually added 3 more projects that are areas of influence, and they did really commend the planning staff for the work they're doing at the counter on all these entitlements that are coming on the cannabis ordinance. But it was a great meeting, and we got direction on and prioritization. And I can get you, I'm not going to read them all off, but just want to let you know that that's good. I like that because that gives me what my objectives are for this next year, and really clarifies things for Julia and I when we talk to the staff about what's happening. So that's about it. And I also want to thank you for your patience on today's meeting, and also coming for the November 27th meeting, where the second item that's continued, and that's it.
And then, if I may, through the chair, Julia Acker, Chief Planner. And I would just like to introduce, we have a new planner with our office, and if Tia can stand up here. Her name's Tia Saar, and she's going to be a new planner in our Fort Bragg office. She's a Planner 1. She comes to us, and she was with the County of Fresno for 17 years. So we're excited to have her, and she'll be training here for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be stationed in our Fort Bragg office full time.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, now is the time for matters from the public. The Planning Commission welcomes participation in commission meetings. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on the posted agenda, and items which have not already been considered by the commission. No action will be taken. Any members of the public have anything to say? Seeing none, we will move on. There is no consent calendar, so we will move to item 6A, case GP 2018-0002 and R 2018-0004.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I think the light is on. Good morning. Okay. The other ones were so loud. That's okay. Thank you for your patience. This is a general plan and a rezone to change approximately 10.63 acres from agricultural and with a floodplain and airport zone combining district to industrial with floodplain and airport zone combining district, and for the general plan designation to change from agricultural with a floodplain and airport zone combining district to industrial with floodplain and airport zone combining district. The location of the site is 3 miles south of Ukiah City Center on the east side of Taylor Drive, about 0.2 miles south of its intersection with Plant Road, and the location of the site is 3201 Taylor Drive in Ukiah. The total acreage, as mentioned, is 10.63 acres, and the environmental determination is a negative declaration. The applicant is requesting a general plan amendment and a rezone to change the subject property to facilitate future industrial uses to be a permitted right on the site. It is currently zoned agricultural. The parcel is currently vacant and was formerly in use as a pear orchard. There was a grading permit awarded in July, and prior to that, the site had a vegetative cover primarily consisting of grasses, blackberry brambles, and weedy species. Now it is graded and ready for development. Access to the parcel is from Taylor Drive, located through a gate on the northwestern corner. The surrounding land uses include additional industrial, the Highway 101 on and off ramps to the west, industrial and residential uses to the north and south, the City of Ukiah public facilities to the east, and the abandoned Northwest Pacific Railroad directly to the east of the site. Staff has found both general plan and zoning consistency with this request, as well as adherence to the Ukiah Valley Area Plan as required. As well, the site is located in the Airport Zone B2, and it was vetted and approved by the Airport Land Use Commission on October 18th of this year. The environmental determination, as mentioned, is a negative declaration, and we have some discussion for that as well. And I think I'm going to let Matt do that.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski. If there are further questions about the project or maps, please direct those to planning staff, Susan. For the moment, in terms of what we've been working on and reviewing the packet this morning during the delay to start the meeting, was what exactly was found in the initial study and what was prepared as a mitigated negative declaration. In reviewing those identified mitigation measures, in staff's opinion, most of those aren't required to be mitigation measures as they are pre-existing requirements that would be required for any development on that site. In a few minutes, maybe I'll try and get the resolution up on the screen, and I can roll through those with you. Most of them were things like the Air Quality Management District has rules and regulations. Compliance with those would be required for any development on the site. Similarly, compliance with stormwater runoff procedures. The county has an ordinance chapter that requires that. Thirdly, the county has existing requirements regarding discovery of archaeological items. So there will have been a mitigation measure identified as that, but in staff's view, that isn't actually required to be a mitigation measure under CEQA. It's already required. So that item could be treated as a less than significant impact and not need mitigation because of the pre-existing requirement. There was only one item that, in staff's view, was something that was beyond a standard required component of the county code or of the air district's requirements, and that was related to keeping trees on site. After the preparation of the environmental document, which I'll say was done by the applicant in this instance, it is fine for the county to rely on a CEQA document prepared by the applicant, although it has to use its independent judgment in reviewing it. So after the applicant submitted the initial study, it had done a boundary survey and determined that the only trees that they thought were on site actually were not on site, and they were within the right-of-way of the fee-owned county right-of-way of the street adjacent to the property. So as such, there would be no requirement for a mitigation measure on that basis. So CEQA does allow for deletion and substitution of mitigation measures. Here, we're relying on that procedure to delete them and make the statement that these are already pre-existing requirements. And I'll review the resolution in a moment, with the end goal of being that the recommendation would be to adopt a negative declaration, not a mitigated negative declaration. I might use Susan's hands while she go through the ordinance so we can all stay in the same spot. So on the screen is a revised resolution showing in red line the changes that staff is recommending to the resolution that would make the Planning Commission's report and recommendation. The first whereas clause there is, instead of saying a neg deck was prepared for the project, it is acknowledging that a mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the project, and that is what was circulated for review, that is what was noticed in the agenda for today's meeting. A new whereas clause has been added, stating that at the public hearing that the Commission is holding today, the Commission reviewed the mitigation measures with staff and the applicant, and as provided in the findings below, determined that, pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15074.1b, the mitigation measures may be deleted, and in doing so will not cause any potentially significant impact on the environment, and so recommends the adoption of a negative declaration. Going to the findings on the next page is where we've been preparing the actual connections for all of these different findings. So the initial study identified environmental impacts that were initially found to require mitigation. However, pursuant to the CEQA Guidelines section, we held a public hearing on this item, and the section also allows us to have the hearing at the same time regarding changes to mitigation measures. And based on the following, the Commission would find the mitigation measures identified in the draft initial study may be deleted, and doing so will not cause any potentially significant effect on the environment. The first mitigation measure is mitigation Air 1 regarding air quality resources. This mitigation measure essentially required compliance with the rules and regulations of the Mendocino County Air Quality Management District. Those regulations would require, in any event on this property, they apply generally within the boundaries of the air district. So because compliance with the rules and regulations will be required in any event for the activities on the site, the deletion of this mitigation measure could not create any potentially significant effect on the environment. And if you want to discuss this one at a time or at the end, please let me know. The second mitigation measure was Air 2. And this mitigation measure required maintenance of equipment to minimize excessive exhaust emissions. Exhaust emissions that are deemed excessive would be within the purview of the Air Quality Management District. If there are complaints on excessive emissions, then the Air District is the one who would then regulate that and say, clean it up, use a different piece of equipment, what have you. So here, to make the finding, we're stating that future activities on the subject property will be required to comply with the rules and regulations of the AQMD to ensure that exhaust emissions are not in excess of what the district would allow. As such, because compliance with the rules and regulations would be required in any event, the deletion of this mitigation measure could not create any potentially significant effect on the environment. Mitigation measure Bio 1 required the preservation of existing trees on site. And I believe we have maps. So maps have been presented to the Commission from the applicant. The applicant did the boundary survey, and according to its survey, the trees that were believed to need to be preserved on site are not actually on site. They're on the county-owned right-of-way next to the site. So because that survey shows that they don't have jurisdiction over those trees to preserve them, that's the county's, on the county's property, the mitigation measure is not necessary. There are no trees otherwise on the site to be preserved. So the deletion of this mitigation measure could not create any potentially significant effect on the environment. Mitigation measure Bio 2 required the notification of the county if any archaeological resources are discovered during site preparation and grading activities.
I'm sorry, Bio 2 was regarding the
I'm sorry. Bio 2, sorry, I skipped ahead there. Bio 2 is regarding the implementation of standard best management practices for future development of the property. This is separately covered independently by the county's Stormwater Runoff Pollution Prevention Procedure Ordinance, Chapter 16.30 of the County Code. So a mitigation measure is not necessary to implement county code requirements, and as such, the mitigation measure is not necessary, and the deletion of this would not create any potentially significant effect on the environment. Mitigation measure GO1 is regarding the notification of if archaeological resources are found. The same story here. County Code Chapter 22.12, archaeological resources would require such notification and whatever the required activities would be in response to finding resources on site to any site preparation and development on the subject property. It's not a requirement of the zoning code, it's a requirement of our land use title, applies in any event. So as such, the mitigation measure is not necessary and could not create any potentially significant effect on the environment. There are other sections of the initial study that referred to these mitigation measures as for mitigation. However, because the mitigation measures either are not necessary or are not necessary because there's nothing at issue, say with the trees, or aren't necessary because they're taken care of by separate air quality requirements or county code requirements, these mitigation measures could also be deleted. In summary, given the above findings, no mitigation measures are required to be implemented as part of the project. The environmental impacts identified in the initial study are hereby deemed to be less than significant as they can be mitigated through existing requirements of the county code or the Mendocino County Air Quality Management District. The Commission recommends that the initial study be revised to reflect the deletion of the mitigation measures and that a negative declaration be adopted. In doing so, the initial study and now negative declaration would still contain references to all these code sections, but would then show that that's the reason why there's less than significant impact as opposed to needing a mitigation measure to make it less than significant. And a statement would be added regarding the trees not actually being on site. The last addition is also just a recognition that the draft initial study was prepared by a third party, but was subjected to the independent review and analysis of Planning and Building Services and the Planning Commission, and that it reflects the independent judgment of Mendocino County. And that's just an overall statement to be made in the event we're approving or in this case, recommending approval of a environmental document prepared by an applicant. And those findings will be made separately in the resolution for Board of Supervisors approval of the document. Are there any questions about that review at all?
Not necessarily a question about the review, but it appears that the recommendation from the Planning Commission remains the same. Is that correct?
Julia Acker, Chief Planner. The only revision would be that where it says by resolution, we would just want to state as revised at the public hearing on November 15th, 2018. But otherwise, you are correct that that does have the appropriate recommendation.
Thank you, Julia.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we would be happy to hear from the applicant if they care to address us.
Hi, Chris Watt, Laco Associates, for the firm representing the applicant, Ulupa Investments. And yeah, thanks for taking the time this morning to let us kind of get things straightened out. This is really just an expansion of their existing operations and moving their bulk storage from the North State Street facility down to near their headquarters in the transfer station. So, I mean, this is really it's an environmental project. I mean, the amount of truck traffic and is going to go way down, and this use is really consistent with the surrounding area. So, I mean, I think it's overall, this is good for everybody. So, if there's any questions about that, I can take those.
Any questions for the applicant?
Okay.
Seeing none, thank you. At this time, we will open the public hearing on this matter. If any members of the public would like to address this item, step forward now. Seeing none, we will bring this back to the commission. Any discussion, questions, or ready for a motion?
Not really. The revisions seem all fine. I think we understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Nicely presented.
So you want a motion?
Yeah.
By resolution is revised by the Planning Commission today, November 15th. The Planning Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors adopt a negative declaration, approve the general plan land use amendment to change 10.63 acres to industrial with floodplain and airport zone combining districts, and by ordinance rezone 10.63 acres from, I guess I should say, do you want me to restate this? From AG 40.
recommended motion with the change.
As revised today. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I believe we are ready for a vote.
Commissioner Hall?
Yes.
Nope. Commissioner Nelson, sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Ogle?
Yes.
Commissioner Hall?
Yes.
Commissioner Warner?
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell?
Yes.
Chair Holdcamp?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Are there any further matters from staff?
We have none today. Thank you.
Are there any further matters from the commission?
Just wondering if we can clarify our December meetings, if we know about the 27th, and then what?
The Planning Commission has a special meeting scheduled on November 27th. And currently, I can tell you there are items on the first meeting in December, but I can't confirm the second meeting because the due date hasn't come yet for our planners.
And are we resolved to start the November 27th, the December and the January meetings at 10?
The 10 a.m. start time will only apply to our special meeting scheduled on November 27th. Every other meeting will start at 9 a.m.
Can we change that? The Coasties usually like it in the winter.
I would have to look at it. I don't know if that would
We have done
mandate
this
a
in
change
other
of the
years.
bylaws.
I don't think so. We have done it in other years.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, off the top of my head, I believe the bylaws would call for a 9 a.m. start time unless otherwise noticed by the Planning Commission. So if we would like that to be a 10 o'clock start time for those meeting dates, please provide staff that direction, and that would be fine under the bylaws.
Is everybody good with that?
Well, unless we have a jam-packed full agenda, but if we don't, I would love the 10 o'clock start. It's so much better going over 20 when it's not so icy.
So why don't we direct staff to notice any remaining November, December, and January meetings for 10 o'clock?
Be great.
Does anybody disagree with that decision? Or okay, so just November 27th, December, and January, only those months. So everybody try and remember, fix your calendars.
So to be
Last
clear,
time we did this, Greg and I showed up at 9.
So to be clear, the Planning Commission would like all scheduled meetings for November, December, and January to start at 10 a.m.
Yes, please.
I will be calling you the day before the meeting.
Okay. Are there any other matters from commission? I have one. I did not receive my ALUC packet, and I don't think this is Victoria's fault. I think this is the mail's fault and the fires and stuff. We have had discussions about doing a tablet thing and not mailing these paper packets, and some people do want the paper, but just a thing to revisit.
I know that I've spoken with Chief Planner, and we will be researching this and reporting back at the next meeting.
That's exactly what I was going to echo.
Yeah, it's not a big hurry. We've talked about it before, and I know a lot of the commissioners do like paper packets anyway, but mailing's going up again. It doesn't, in the fires, it doesn't seem to really work. I mean, if Victoria can't get, I live right here in town, if I can't get it.
Well, and certainly I know that, similar commissions such as our Board of Supervisors have gone to more digitized packets and such. And so it's certainly something we can look into, and we can report back at the next regularly scheduled meeting. May not have something for the November 27th, but I think certainly in
Absolutely.
December we can give an
No big
update.
hurry, but I think we should
Okay.
just think about it, because it seems like with all these fires, there have been a number of interruptions. I've
Sure.
gotten a number of packets late, and like I say, I live only about 8 blocks that way. No, I mean,
certainly
Our mail leaves the area.
we will
before it
come
comes
back
to us.
and certainly give an update on that and see if we can either address the mailing issue or be able to provide tablets and going to a more digitized process. So, thank you.
Yeah, just a comment, and I know I'm old school, but I really like my paper to go through in red line. For me, doing it on a computer and trying to, it takes forever. So, in my opinion, I still prefer to get the paper. If I'm in town, I'd be happy to pick it up, but I'm sorry, mailing is a cost of doing business.
I promise I'll always provide you the paper packets.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest, is that we'll come back with essentially an update and we can discuss it then at that time with you as to whether or not that's where we want to head, if that's something that's feasible for us to have happen. So, and just kind of how we will work that out. So, okay.
One other thing under commission. And I've already talked to Madeline, but I didn't know if maybe we should all kind of be aware about the position for the other commissioner who is no longer with us. So I don't know if you have an update or if you'd like an update from Madeline or what.
The clerk of the board has posted the vacancies and we are accepting applications. At this point, that's as far into the process as we've gotten. The PBS staff will be notified when an application comes in, but that's as far as our involvement in the process up until that point.
That appointment is made by the supervisors. It's not a
It is
individual supervisor appointment like some of us are for districts.
It's posted on the website. The vacancy list went out. Both positions are named. So it's in full motion and being taken care of.
And one other thing, I'm not sure when we need to discuss next year's positions. Is that in December? As far as chair, vice chair?
I think that we usually have the organizational meeting in January. Is that
It's
correct?
typically the first meeting in January where we propose the meeting schedule for the year.
And
change officers.
okay, thank you.
One other item.
Go ahead.
I would be interested in getting a written printout of the list that the director and the supervisors went over of those projects for the coming year. Maybe in the next packet.
We can get that to you.
Great. Thanks.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.